Hi guys, just out here splitting and cutting a little bit of wood. Wanted to do a quick video on something I don't think that's talked about enough. I've seen a few channels do videos similar to it about what makes a good firewood saw. Gotta catch my breath. Criteria for a good firewood saw is it's got to start for one, it's got to run good for two, and it's got to be big enough to do whatever size wood that you're average cutting. If your average wood is 16 inches and down, you don't need anything bigger than, honestly, 50 cc's max. And that would be plenty for 16 inch and down. You could get by with a good 45 cc saw. Now if you're cutting stuff that's 24 inches and down, you're going to want something in the 60 cc range. Not that you can't get it done with a 50 cc saw, especially if you got a good one. You're going to want something that at least will pull a 20-inch bar. The other criteria I don't think that's talked about enough is it budget friendly? For example, a 562 is somewhat budget friendly if you're looking for bang for the buck. But if you're looking new, it's not nearly as budget friendly as a 460 Rancher or a 590 Echo or even a 620 Echo. If you're wanting to go used, there's a lot of good saws out there, especially in that 60 cc class range and even 50 cc class range. I mean, you can still get 450 Ranchers new. They're a good saw. I have one. I mean, I wish it was a 550 XP, but it is what it is. I run it. My water slightly froze. If you're looking for the most cheap, rugged, bare, beat up saw that you can get, it's either going to be a used 590 Echo if you're wanting to spend around the $200 range, $200 to $300 depending on how used. Me personally, I wouldn't spend much more than about 250 or 300 bucks on a 590, as they're only like 400 new. So if you're going to spend that much, you might as well just go get a new one and get your 5-year warranty. Sit down on my splitting piece. I'll get a split here in a minute. But if you're looking for the absolute cheapest saw you can get and the most power you're going to get, it's going to be like a 610 Mac or a 1010 Mac or 200 series Husky, like 272 all the way to 61, or the Johnsrud variant, 625, 630, 630 Super, 670s. Those are all really good saws. I have a 61. That was my first chainsaw. It's been on the channel before. I have it here today because it always starts, always idles, always has enough power for that 20-inch bar. If I really wanted to and would run a sharp chain, I could do a 24. But that 61 also has a little bit of an exhaust modification and a little bit of intake timing. Probably 2 degrees intake timing. No other port adjustment other than the intake. That 610 that's been on the channel before, they're heavy and they use a lot of fuel, but you know what? That stupid thing starts. That stupid thing always idles. And it runs good. I regularly put a 24-inch bar on that saw and it pulls it just fine. I think my 61 is a little bit stronger than my 610, but the 610 is a little smoother saw, but it's also heavier, quite a bit heavier. I think the 61 is around the 12-pound range, and I think the 610 is in the 14s, which is stupid for what it is, but it runs good, so I don't really care. And the other part of that is I don't have to worry about nobody stealing the McBrick out of the truck. And if they do, I can regularly pick those up running, or have them running by the time I get them home for $50, $100. They're cheap, and that's usually with the 20-inch bar on them. That one I bought, I paid $5 for it. I put a chain on the bar and an air filter. That's all I've done to that saw, other than switch the oiler out from a parts saw, which ironically the automatic oiler still is not working, so I will have to order a couple new oilers, because I think at some point I'm going to get my parts saw running, because it's in nicer shape than my runner, ironically. My 394, it has a 395 top end. Even with all of the bars I bought for that, I bought a 28 used, or a 28-inch bar that had never been on a saw, but I bought it secondhand. I bought a 32, also a secondhand, never been on a saw, and I bought a 36-inch, ironically an Echo bar new, because I used to have a CS8000. I didn't really care for that saw, but I bought a bar for it anyway, because at the time that was my only bigger than 70cc saw, so I needed a big bar for it. Even with all those bars and having the top end professionally installed at the time, because I wasn't comfortable doing it, and that's OEM top end, OEM intake boot, OEM 395 carb. I mean, everything got switched over 395 from the base gasket up. Even after all that, I've probably only got, and a new OEM recoil because I exploded mine, I've probably only got $800 in that saw. And new, they're $1,400 now, $1,500 after tax. And that saw is more than paid for itself, probably 15 times over. That's why I have all those bars for that. It's because it pays for itself. That 61 used to be my only saw for a long time. That was my only saw. And honestly, if I really wanted to, I could cut down to about 3 saws. A small 50cc saw, that 61, just because I won't get rid of that, and my 395. The rest of them are just either fun or because I can saws. Like my 298, I don't need nothing that big. I don't. I rarely need something that big. I've only wished for a bigger saw than my 395 about twice. When I was cutting 6-foot cottonwood, I wished for a little bit bigger saw. And then when I was cutting some almost 6-foot sycamore, but that's when I still had my 8000. I could have easily got that job done with that 395, because it tapered out like an ice cream cone pretty quick. That's the other thing. If you're willing to do a little work, originally I got that 395. It was blown up, and I traded 2 pretty clapped out Polaris 4-wheelers for it. Neither one of them ran. And then I had that top end put on, and I've got nicer top covers for it now, and a new recoil, and I need to get a new chain side cover because my brake doesn't work. But that's the thing I don't think that's discussed enough, is if you're willing to do a little work and wait for a good deal will come along. My 61, originally I paid $200 for that, and that's been ages ago. Probably somewhere around, what is it, 2022, probably somewhere right or almost 10 years ago. The only thing I've ever done to that saw internally is a piston ring, because my ring end gap was getting quite large and it wasn't running right, so I took it into the shop twice. That's the other thing. Regardless of brand, dealer. If you have a good dealer, stick with a good dealer. I have a good Husky dealer near me. Not that there's not steel dealers around me, it's just that actual dealer, like you can go in and get parts. Not like every time you go in for something other than a spark plug or maybe a fuel line or stuff like that, they have to order it. I'm talking like a legitimate dealer. That's really the only dealer I have around me, is a Husky dealer, without driving 20 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever, to the nearest steel dealer. And my Husky dealer also deals in Echoes. It's just not that they're not a good saw, they're just not my cup of tea. I really don't like their intake boot setup. They're too much like Steels in that manner. You got to take a lot of stuff off just to get the intake boot out. I really hate that. That's another reason why I don't run any Steels right now, because their intake boot setup is rather dumb. I don't like having to take 30 minutes to do an intake boot regardless of how you take it out, because you either got to A, fight the dumb thing with a pair of needle nose pliers and push it in and out, or B, take the tank handle off. That doesn't seem like a good idea to me. I've never really cared for that. And not that they don't make good saws, and not that they don't make good products, because they do. There's a reason they're still in business. Because they make good stuff. But that's one of the things I don't think that's talked about enough, is if you're willing to wait for the right deal, and if you can work on stuff yourself, you can get blown up logging saws for pennies on the dollar compared to new. And they might need a top end, even if they need bearings. If you're willing to do and willing to get a case splitter on most of these old saws, you can do a bottom end in 2 hours. Sometimes a little longer if you have a flywheel that doesn't want to come off, or an oil pump that's stuck in place, or a clutch nut that's been rounded off, or little crap like that. But something that's actually been somewhat taken care of. Most of the time, as long as the flywheel doesn't fight you too bad, you can have a saw completely broke down and cleaned to just bare cases in about 2 hours. And that's cleaning it however you want to clean it, pressure washing, whatever. Me personally, if I know I'm going to be doing bearings anyway, as soon as I get that crank out, I'm going to set that crank off to the side and everything's getting power washed or dunked in solvent for a couple hours or something. You got to be careful with the solvent though, because any plastic parts that are still attached, or any paint, if you leave it in there very long, is gone. But there's a lot of good saws out there that just do not get bought because people don't want to put the time in to keep an old saw going. My 1010, for example, I'm selling a 1010 automatic that runs beautifully. I'm trying to get $150 out of it because I have a pretty much brand new Oregon bar to go with it. And if somebody's not going to give me at least $100, I'm going to keep it, because those air filters go for $50 online because they don't make them anymore. So if somebody's not going to at least give me what the air filter's worth plus what the potential for the saw is worth, I'm not going to get rid of it. There's no point. Another part of that conversation is once you get a good saw, it doesn't really matter what it's worth. Like that 610, for example. I've probably only got $60 in that, including chains. I wouldn't sell that saw for $60. There's no way. Is it worth more than $60? Maybe. Most of the time, not. It runs good. It runs good. It's got a decent bar on it. The manual pumper works fine, and as long as, you know, someone that's competent knows how to run it, they don't necessarily need an automatic oiler. It would be nice to have one, but just because that saw is only worth $100 doesn't mean I'm going to let it go for $100 either if somebody wants it. Just because, to me, it could make me more money than that just by setting it in the back of the truck and using it as a firewood saw. And then I don't have to run my 61 there as much, because my 61 I would like to keep nice as long as possible, because at some point I would like my children to be able to run that. Will that happen? I have no idea. But that's about all I wanted to do today. I got to get back to splitting wood, so just a little rambling video. If you guys got any kind of content you want to see, let me know. Appreciate you guys watching. I do see the subscribers coming up a little bit. I think I'm up to just under 50 subscribers. I see you guys. I appreciate the comments. Like I said, if there's anything you want to see or anything you want me to do that you know I might possibly be doing, just put her in the comments. Thanks. Bye for now.